Hey everyone, welcome back to the More Than a Career podcast, brought to you by Marketing Press, WordPress Development. This is the show about who people are and not necessarily what they do. Today, our special guest is Fox Beyer. Fox Beyer is a Spanish teacher in Whippany Park, New Jersey, but he's also the author of this book, Letter Kindling, which is a collection of his poetry. Fox was a college student coach at University of South Carolina baseball, and he had a couple of trips to the College World Series and Super Regionals. And he's also a batting practice pitcher and coach with the Somerset Patriots. I think you're going to love this interview. We talk a whole lot about baseball and life and his poetry, and he imparts a couple of great tips on a couple ways to find your happiness. And I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, here's our talk with Fox Beyer. Welcome back to our show. I have our special guest over here, Fox Beyer. Fox is a teacher in Whippany Park, and you teach Spanish, right?
I certainly do.
Yeah. So why Spanish? Well, first of all, let's not even talk about that.
Why?
Let's just say, how did you get into teaching? And tell us more about your teaching career, and has it always been Spanish?
Well, it goes back to after I graduated from South Carolina, and I'm at my best friend's wedding at the time. And, graduating in Carolina, I felt like there was unfinished business there.
Okay.
In other words, I was thinking victory lap, man. And baseball-wise, we had just gotten knocked out of the Super Regionals for the second year in a row. We got beat in the third game at Stanford, and I'm thinking to myself at the wedding, I got to get back there.
Right.
We got to go. We got to do one more shot. I majored in history, and I minored in Spanish originally.
Okay.
So I'm on the dance floor with my best friend's aunt, who was a teacher, and she said, "You know what? You need to teach Spanish." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, you could talk about normal, mundane things and make it fun." And I said, "You know what? That's my ploy to my parents for a fifth year.
Oh.
I'm gonna see if this works, And I right then and there, I think I went over to my dad and I said, "Dad, what do you think about me going back for a fifth year? I'll be a Spanish teacher, And I said, there's a lot of want for that now in the market. What do you think of that?" He's probably thinking, this piece of garbage. He's going to give me a run for his money for a fifth year.
He's going to be a career student.
But I ended up going back. Yeah, career student.
Sure.
Career student, which, heck, I am to this day. I'm constantly, learning and stuff. But was able to go back and get that degree in Spanish, and we went to the College World Series in '02. So,
Did you
made out great.
So, kind of skipping around here. So,
sure.
But I'm just going to ask: did you have eligibility to play that fifth year?
Well, remember, you see me. I'm
sure.
like a cow on AstroTurf.
Sure.
I was a team manager for 3 years, rubbing up baseballs and setting up BP, basically doing everything the coaches asked me to do.
Sure.
And then, end of my sophomore year, Coach Tanner asked me if I wanted to be a coach the following year, a student coach. Which meant that I would forfeit any eligibility. Now, listen, I'm not going to play at that level.
Right.
Of course, I said yes right away. And my final 3 years there, I was a student coach.
Oh, cool.
So, picked everybody's brain and learned a little bit about the game and about life. And won a bunch of games during that time, and I was very, very lucky to be a part of it.
Is Coach Tanner still there? Is he still the coach? Who's the coach now of the team? Is it still Tanner?
He is now the athletic director.
Okay. All right.
Sure. Because there's the AD, and Chad Holbrook is now the head coach, who's also awesome.
So you went from that. So then you went back. You started teaching Spanish, and so what your friend's mother said to you was, is that your theory of teaching? Like, is it like? So I took like 5 years of Spanish, and I live in a highly, Latino area here in Tempe, Phoenix, right?
Sure.
And my Spanish is extremely limited. It's textbook, right? It's textbook Spanish. And it was actually Spanish taught to me from a guy who was from Bogota. So like inherently, I got the Colombian dialect. No matter what, you know what I mean. So do you kind of approach it more on a conversational, practical manner, unless somebody really wants to be super proficient at the language, or?
I certainly try to. Now, Greg, keep in mind, I teach the lower levels.
Okay.
We're talking about Spanish 1 and Spanish 2.
Okay.
Trying to get the building blocks, okay, to be able to go into conversational stuff. But we'll make up, crazy stories. I do something called total physical response storytelling with a lot of my classes, where we make up a story using key phrases. Like so-and-so went to a restaurant. Where was the restaurant? They pick where the restaurant was. Throw it down Arkansas. I mean, it doesn't exist. But we use key phrases that are funny to try to get them to learn the language as much as I can.
Well, and then,
at the lowest level.
Yeah, I totally relate with that because I do a lot of speaking engagements, and like I'm not going to be able to teach everybody everything that they need to know in a 45-minute, 60-minute session, right? So I try to make it conversational. I try to make it humorous. Sometimes sometimes I'm the only one in a whole room of 250 who thinks anything is funny, right? which makes it even more funny, right? Or funnier. But I mean, I love that approach because at that point, if you can tie like humor into something that's practical, into something, and if they can put their own spin on it, then it's probably going to stick with them a little bit better than if it was, nosotros vamos, blah, blah, blah,
Sure.
So that's awesome.
And I try every single day, Greg, to make something fun and exciting. Does it always happen that way? No, but I mean, it's a good day if I'm, a little bruised and battered and dirty, meaning we can do a skit or something where I end up on the floor or I make fun of myself. Right. That gets them engaged. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a grind, man, like anything else.
It's funny, like, I'm in technology and marketing here. You're in the educational world, and it's like, it's all about engagement. I mean, it really is. Yes. It comes down about engagement. And like like I was telling you before we started recording, like that was a lot of the premise of this show about human engagement here. Like we know a lot about like what people do professionally, but do we know a lot about like them and what makes them tick? And it's all, and that just ties the engagement together. Right. I love that approach. That's awesome. That's awesome.
I try. Now, am I an all-star? No. Do I make it attempt daily? Yeah. Yes.
And that's all any of us can do. So tell us about the book you just published. I have a copy here, the Letter Kindling here.
I think I do have a copy myself.
Awesome. So tell us about this. This is when we talked the other night, actually, when I was in New Jersey, and I found, and I was like, wow, okay, so this guy's a Spanish teacher, and he wrote a book of poetry. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm like, that's just, you know what I mean? It's just like
another disaster.
So was poetry and writing always like a passion of yours, or is this something that came about, or?
I can go back to the very beginning. This is back in college with Coach Tanner being the head coach. He would always say, when I was coming up as a coach, and his mentor was Jim Valvano at NC State.
Sure.
He said that he would say things, and Coach would always write them down. He'd always say, Foxy, you got to write this down. You got to write this down. And I did. Now, are those things in this book? Yes, parts of them are. But what happened was, even after I left Carolina, I would write things down that I would hear, boom, boom, boom. And then along about July, before a game this summer, the manager, a good friend of mine, graduate of the University of South Carolina, we're driving along, and he goes, Fox, we need to make a song, because all we do is we listen to music,
right,
all the time. And so eventually I wrote a little song. He liked it and said, you need to keep doing this. And it manifested itself in this poetry about my life, about motivation, about everything.
Wow, that's awesome. That is.
She would always joke with me, my mother, about having a committee in my head. I constantly talk to myself, and admittedly, I do that. Right. Hopefully at a lower level, so I don't seem so crazy. But you know what? She's right. Okay, I admit that she's absolutely right. I mean, I hear things, and I'll talk about them like, oh, breathe. That would be a great name for a poem. And I'll say it out loud. And she'll be like, hey, Fox, who are you talking to? What are you laughing at? And So now I'm talking to myself less because I put thoughts in my book.
That's awesome. That's pretty cool. So I'll put you on the spot here. So I know a lot of singers, songwriters, and I always ask them this question, and they never answer it.
Oh, no.
So let's see, which one's your favorite?
Which one is my favorite?
And you can't say they're all like my kids. I love them all the same.
No. I won't be political here. I'm going to say the one that I think of is it's called Skinny Fat Dude.
Oh, okay.
It's called Skinny Fat Dude.
Okay.
Here's where it came from. A friend of mine who's the manager for the team that I work for, Somerset Patriots. He's an in shape guy.
Right.
Okay. But he thinks that he looks at himself and says, I don't look good. He has a low self-esteem at times, which he really doesn't. But one day he looked at me and said, I just worked out today and I feel like a skinny fat dude. I said, time out. What did you just say? I feel like a skinny fat dude. I'm like, that's got to go into something. And I put it in this book. But it's really about me. Okay. Because anybody who knows me knows that my diet is a seafood diet. Right. Okay. I love fried foods and junk, and I've tried for years since I turned 30 to try to stop that or quell that a little bit. But no, I am a skinny fat dude. Right.
That's awesome. That's funny, and it's funny that that would make it into the book, and that would be, your favorite and all of that. So the book
accepted it. I can't believe they accepted it.
Yeah, yeah, really. So when you say they, who the editor that you worked with? Or?
Sure, Ex-Libris Publishing Company. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Yes. So yes. This, and I'll put a link to this in the show notes. It's available on Amazon, and people can go and they can read all about the skinny fat dude and
there he is
and all of that good stuff.
As you can see.
So a lot of our conversation so far, has revolved around two things, right? It's revolved around baseball and what garnet and black. That's what they say down there, right?
Oh, yeah, garnet. Nice
garnet and black, right?
Garnet. I like that. It's very royal.
Garnet and black. Well, here we're maroon and gold across the street. So
yes.
So baseball. You work with the Somerset Patriots, which is. In my understanding, they're an independent baseball team, right? They're not affiliated with a major league club.
Correct. Well put.
Right, and it's in Bridgewater, Somerset, New Jersey, down there. It's actually, yes. I actually went to a couple games last summer. My parents live right down the street from the stadium, so I was probably one of 75 at the game.
No.
At the day game, it was a day game.
7,500, you mean?
Oh, that's right. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, it's okay.
So what do you do how did you get involved with the team and what's your role and how does that, what's it like being around a professional club on a daily basis?
First of all, it's a privilege to be able to do it. The manager is a graduate of the University of South Carolina. He was a pitcher there in the late 90s, Brett Jody. So he was a junior when I was a freshman. Okay. And we developed a friendship when we were there. We used to take something called a bus called the shuttlecock up to campus. Okay. Pretty much every day. And I remember one day we were on the shuttlecock going off to class, and we get off the bus, and he's talking about, hey, Fox, why don't you stay here for Thanksgiving? Because we want to let's fry a turkey. Why don't you just not go home? I want to show you the better parts of Carolina. I said, sure. We were talking, and before you knew it, he looked to his right, and I wasn't there anymore. I had tripped and fallen. Oh, and I started doing push-ups on the ground. So that was my sort of our initiation to our friendship. Right. Fast forward to a bunch of years later, I knew he was the manager there. I forget where I was. I called him up and I said, hey, Brett, I can throw some mean BP. Could I please come out whenever you'll have me and throw some BP? He said, sure. And that just developed. I kept coming more and more often. And before you knew it, they gave me a uniform, and I've been there ever since.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Here where I live in Tempe, with the Cactus League, right? I have 15 teams around me for a good 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll sneak out of the office here.
That dagger in, man. That's cool.
Yeah. So I'll sneak out of the office here, and I'll go to Tempe Diablo Stadium is really close to us, or
Right.
Scottsdale Stadium is really close to us. And I'll go and I'll watch them practice, and I'll just say, wow, how cool is that these guys are, have a life within this game. You know what I mean? That's like, that a game I grew up loving. I've played my whole life. In fact, we start our softball season tonight, which is like old man out of shape baseball.
Yeah, I like it.
But it's still a way for us to lace them up and get them out there, right? Get a little dirty with the friends and stuff. But it's like, that must be awesome, when you leave school and you head down to the park and you start and you work with the team. What's the best part of it?
The best part is it's like a second family, a third family. You get, winning definitely helps, but there's, by the end of the year, by September, I mean, you're all brothers.
Yep.
And stuff goes on there in the clubhouse that only you guys know about.
Sure.
And you develop a very deep relationship.
Yep.
And the more you win, the longer it lasts.
Yep.
Championship teams, when we won in 08 and 09, I mean, those are our friends for life.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It becomes more than just a game, always, but especially when you win. So that's probably the best part. And Greg, I love throwing a baseball, man.
Right.
And to be able to go there and get your ball, you're being barreled by everybody in the world, by some great players. It's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome. Not much not to like about it.
No, I agree. I'm definitely envious. I would love to. Although I don't know about. So when I moved here and we formed a couple adult baseball teams, right? And it was everybody's responsible, and a couple of my friends coached at a local high school baseball team here, right? Corona del Sol. And it was each of our responsibility to stand behind that screen and throw BP to each other. Oh, and holy shit, it's one of the, if you've never done it, everybody listening, if you've never thrown BP, like a baseball to a hard bat or aluminum bat, it's the scariest thing in the world. Right. Is it not?
It is. I mean, it takes a lot of getting used to. There are pitchers that go up there and try to throw BP with an L screen, and they're saying, this is weird. I mean, I can't do this, because you've got to get in the habit of, when you release the ball, to move so line drives don't come back out and hit you. And that does happen, and you have to kind of get used to it. I've overcompensated before, where I'm clearing, and all of a sudden, what happens is the ball goes right off the screen and hits me back in the face. I mean, I've been in the batting cage where just this past season, I'm throwing during a game, and our guy hits a ball off a pipe, which is the pipe to a water line, and the water line explodes.
Jesus.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff can happen.
It's scary. Like, I remember standing in the back of the L screen and throwing to my friend Adam, actually. And Adam was a high-level high school baseball player. He probably, could have played at Arizona State here, had things been different. But I remember him hitting one right back and hitting it into the screen part, right? But I was on the ground, because I was, he depleted me. My feet were up. If he would have hit me, honestly, he would have hit my feet. Because
Charlie Brown you, yeah.
Yeah, totally, because it was just like, holy shit, this ball, and it's not, a regular amount is what, 60 feet, 6 inches, right?
Yes.
The distance holding the plate to rubber.
66, right.
So the screen's closer, isn't it? You're on the...
I mean, I'm probably throwing it, 45 feet or so.
So Little League, that's like Little League-ish.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm big league, but that's quite all right.
Listen, Little League, okay, I'll redefine it. Little League distance, not Little League.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
But what
you have the access television here.
What I'm saying is, that ball's coming out from a professional baseball player. I don't care what league they're playing in, right? Yeah. I don't care, right? From a professional baseball player, from a Little League distance. Right. And that would raise my heart.
Yeah, I mean, balls go past your ear, man. You're thinking, boy, 1 inch to the left or right, the lights would have gone out for sure. That happens every single day, and you really have to be aware and respect it for sure.
Yeah. Talk about an adrenaline sport.
For sure.
Because, I share an office here with a guy who's plugged into the action sports and skateboard industry. Maybe we can have him pitch it for like the next X Games or something like that. Extreme batting practice.
Yes.
Pitching. Something like that.
I like it.
So how often are you with the club? I mean, So does a team like the Somerset Patriots, do they go through a typical spring training like other, or is it?
Our spring training lasts about 2 weeks.
Okay.
You know, they come in there, you know, in close to playing shape
Sure.
at that point. And in recent years, we've had our spring training at TD Bank Ballpark.
Yep.
Okay, we'll do a lot of drill work. We'll have a lot of inter squad scrimmages, and we'll play the closer teams in the Atlantic League, be it Camden, be it Lancaster, be it York, and that's how we'll get ready to play.
Oh, so that's super interesting. It's a whole nother you know, I do a lot of I'll catch a lot of fall ball games here. You know, rookie
Yes.
league, you know, stuff like that, and it's just like it's a whole nother level of commitment to a career, right?
Sure.
To be, you know, people make careers playing independent ball or AA or Carolina. You know, they have whole careers.
Yep. Not easy to do that. I mean, you know, when guys here that have played, I mean, they have a lot of experience that have played 5, 7, 10 years. They'll play, okay, in the Caribbean. A lot of them, for winter ball, play in Puerto Rico, play in Mexico, play in Venezuela, play in the Dominican Republic, just because because they love it. Okay,
Absolutely, sure.
It hones their skills and it lets scouts see them and hopefully gets them back into affiliated baseball.
Right. Yeah, it's so awesome, and it's so great that, you know, growing up, you know, in Somerset County, there we didn't have the team. You
Right.
know, for us to see professional baseball, you know, we went to one of 3 stadiums. You know, we either went to Veterans Stadium in Philadelphia, or Yankee Stadium, or Shea Stadium. You know, of course, I preferred going to the Bronx because that's, you know, like all
did
of
as
us.
well.
Yeah, exactly. We're all Yankee fans, but it's just so cool that, you know, there's an exposure and to professional baseball in that region, right? And it's not millionaires, right? It's not the superstars.
Right.
It's not, you know, it's everyday guys showing up for their job. You know, and I think that's just awesome. I absolutely love it. You know, so I do catch a bunch of games every time I come back. So, you know, it's a lot of. Oh, I will. I'll be back. I'll be back soon, actually. so, judging from the pictures in back of you and knowing you're a Yankee fan, of course, right? There's no doubt that you're a Yankee fan, and is that actually Mattingly over your shoulder over there?
Oh, well, no, those are myself and Derek Jeter, and myself and Joe Torre.
Oh, it's Torre. Okay, Torre in the bottom line. It looks like Mattingly. So how did that picture come about?
I wish it were Mattingly. He was my idol growing up, for sure.
Donnie Baseball, definitely.
Yep.
Yeah. How did those pictures come about?
Well, when I was a senior in high school, had a nice season as a pitcher. And a guy that did a story on me got in touch with the Yankees. A guy named Mike Quick, who worked at MSG Network.
Sure. And
he knew I was a big Yankee fan. And he called me one day and he said, "Listen, you've had a great year. I got a surprise for you." And he goes, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "No, Mike, why?" He goes, "You need to sit down." Okay. I sat down and he said, "Fox, you are going to throw out the first pitch to a Yankees game."
Wow.
And I had just come back from a run, and I went back out for another one because I was just so wired about it all. And it was great, man.
The old stadium, of course.
The old stadium, had a bunch of family and friends go. Funny story about the first pitch. Going out to the field, I tripped and fell. Okay, and then when I threw out the first pitch to Posada, I danced around. You know, I mean, I threw out a pitch at Yankee Stadium. How else was I going to get there?
Right.
How else was this skinny fat dude going to get there? This is how he's going to get there. And a guy behind home plate was filming me, but he didn't get the shot because I danced so much. He started laughing and he fell backwards, so he never got the shot.
That's awesome. So did you throw from the rubber or did you throw from in front of the mound?
I threw from in front.
Yeah.
I
Good
always
choice.
say that David Wells did not let me. I'm going to say I didn't really want to bounce the ball,
Yeah, that's
so
what I was.
make sure to put a little air under it.
Yeah, you didn't want to
And
look like 50 Cent or
exactly,
Gary
right.
Dell'Abate.
So much pro.
Yeah, right. You wanted to look like you deserved to be out there for some reason and not like
Yes, yes.
bounce it
Holy
to.
heck.
Wow. So now you are the third person I know that has thrown out first pitch. That's awesome. I have a friend a friend's father who threw it out at Yankee Stadium, and then I had a friend who's a season ticket holder for the Dodgers who got drawn randomly to do it. But your story's way better.
Awesome.
Who were the Yankees playing that night? You said Wells was pitching.
Wells pitched. They were playing the Indians.
Okay.
Ended up losing the game 2-1. Marquise Grissom hit a home run off of Mariano Rivera in the 8th inning to win the game. What else do I remember about it?
So what year was this?
This was 2005. No, 1997.
So 97. Okay. So 97, they won the World Series in 96.
96.
So they were the defending champions then. Okay.
Right.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome.
It was fun. You know what else was fun, Greg? Was going into the dugout, before the game, and I was with a lady named Julie Hacker, who worked for Exceptional Parent Magazine at the time, a magazine for parents with kids with disabilities. She knew nothing about baseball. She didn't have any idea who these people were in front of her. And one of the guys that really took to her and started talking to her was Wade Boggs. Because he had a sister with MS.
Okay.
And just started conversing with her. And I said, well, this Boggsy, he's a pretty cool guy. And found out later, too, talking to Joe Girardi, that his sister taught at the University of South Carolina.
Oh.
Small world.
That is small world. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you catch a lot of games? I mean, does your schedule allow you to go to the stadium and see games ever?
I mean, not really, but MLB Network,
right?
I'll after our games, we'll fire that on for a minute. I'll come here and I'll be listening to Vin Scully, which is awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, I try to catch as much baseball as I can, being that I'm a junkie, baseball junkie.
So that's interesting. You just said Vin Scully. So Vin Scully is one of my favorite baseball announcers, all right? Mm-hmm. In my mind, when I think about baseball, right, and I'm 44, I'll be 45 in August, so it's like I think of, there's a couple of names that always, like voices in my mind when I think of baseball, and Vin Scully, right, Mel Allen, not Mel,
absolutely.
Yeah, Mel Allen,
yeah,
Johnny Miller from the Giants,
sure.
Of course, Bob Shepard. I mean, it has to be Bob Shepard. And maybe Harry Callis, who did the Phillies way back when. Do you like to listen to baseball on the radio, like driving, or is it?
Certainly, that's my my first love. I mean, before the days of the MLB Network and stuff in the early '90s, my family vacationed in Ocean City, New Jersey, and the only way you could get Yankee games was on the radio. Yep. So invariably, it was John Sterling.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Sterling and Jay Johnstone, I believe, Susan Waldman. So that was from like '93 to '98. I mean, that's really what I did.
Yeah, I remember being a kid, and I remember being on in Lavallette, New Jersey, with my friend's family at their house, and. Like we all do, growing up in New Jersey, you go to the beach it was 4th of July weekend, and I remember we sat around on the beach on the radio listening to Rigetti throw his no-hitter.
That's awesome. Yeah.
But it's like, that's what this game, I think that this game does more than any other sport, right? I'm a big basketball fan, I like football, but baseball, I think that because of the social aspect of it and because of the storytelling nature of it, is just, that's why I always think it's the greatest entertainment, especially I love long car rides, and, maybe if I'm driving to San Diego, I'll try to pick up a Padres game or a Dodger broadcast. I don't really care who's playing if it's on the radio and I'm driving, where if it's like on the television, I want to watch it. I think that the storytelling aspect is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, that's what, to me, baseball is about. It's about what goes on that has nothing to do with baseball. I mean, you just think of so many stories. I was watching a documentary on Bob Uecker.
Oh yeah.
In the '64 World Series during BP, he gets a tuba, and he's out in the outfield catching balls off the bat of Mickey Mantle with a tuba. I mean, you don't get that in most other sports, I don't think.
No, yeah, and I think that also, it's a family game. Like I imagine your family are all baseball fans and Yankees fans.
Yes.
And it's been handed down to you. You didn't just come up and be like, oh, I'm going to be a baseball fan. It was the same thing with us and our family. Like, I'm a Yankees fan because I would go to my grandparents' house for barbecues on the weekend, and it was, you watch Yankee baseball or you didn't watch baseball.
Right.
And it just handed down to you. My grandparents, my aunts, my uncles, cousins, my parents, me, my siblings. It just happens, and that's why I think it's one of the greatest, sports of all time. I could talk about this forever.
Yes, I can tell you definitely could.
That's good. As you probably
I
could
concur.
Too. Yeah.
I really, really do. I mean, I will always be, at the very core, a fan.
So South Carolina they have a rich history of baseball. In that time period, like 2000 to 2007, they were like one of the winningest college programs at the time. That must have been awesome to be a part of. Just be a part of something bigger than any individual. Getting back to the team aspect of things.
Sure, it was a privilege to be part of that. And again, like I told you before, it creates friendships for life when you go through all that. I mean, just looking back, how lucky I was to be part of those teams. In '98 we had a great year. Went to the University of Miami in a regional, and Pat Burrell and Aubrey Huff beat us at Barclay Stadium. And then going on in 2000. We were ranked number 1 for 6 weeks, and that was my first year as a student coach. And you're thinking, oh, it's going to be like that all the time, which it's not. I mean, there's a price to be paid and responsibility when you're number 1. But I was real lucky to be a part of all that.
That's awesome. So I know we've been jumping around a bunch, but in the future, what's next? What's next for you? Are you going to stay in teaching? Are you going to write another book? Or
I think I'm going to write another poem. What do you think?
Another poem? Okay.
I don't know. I don't know. As far as the book goes, if there's interest, I am going to do a poetry reading, which I've never done before. Here in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
We'll see where that goes. We're building the team for Somerset this year, and it looks good. And I do enjoy my time at Whippany Park with those kids. Tomorrow we're going to have. I've got a bunch of copies of my book that I want to give out to the kids. It's nice to see a group of people, and you know what it's like when you're a sophomore, junior, and senior in high school. Like nobody can beat you. The glow that they have it's awe-inspiring, and you kind of want to be part of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So I mean, we jumped around so much. It's actually awesome. I'm actually my mind is spinning. I
but it's all about, baby.
So let's kind of bringing things to an end a little bit. I always ask everybody, this same question. And what's one tip if you had to impart a piece of knowledge from your experience or what you do? What's one tip for happiness you would want to share with somebody?
Sure. Two things, and this really comes from my parents. No complaining. I mean, all that does is make a bad situation worse.
Sure.
It's hard. It's easy to complain, but I mean, I can go on for days about it. Complaining is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it does not get you anywhere. Okay. I mean, we all have valleys, but it's about how do we get out of those valleys? How do we deal with failure? Just no complaining. And if you're talking to somebody else, you need to be in the mindset that nobody has it better than you, instead of woe's me.
Right.
That would be the advice. Is it easy to think that way? No, but you've got to think of your assets all the time instead of thinking about what you don't have. Okay. For example, I can't run. I mean, jokingly, I have to speed up to stop.
Right.
But I've got a committee in my head, and I can write some things down that people might like. Okay. I can't throw a ball at 98 miles an hour, but I can throw one 48.
Right.
So now my game becomes at 5 o'clock for BP.
Right.
I get great satisfaction out of that. Like we were talking before last week, when you have an ability, whatever it is, it's selfish to not spread it to other people.
Sure.
And everybody has that, and you've got to be able to find that. And you find it by not complaining and thinking about what you have and not what you don't have.
I love it. I always believe like if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yes.
It's the same thing. And the other thing, like I say over and over, in conversation, is I believe in velocity of ideas. So like you have something in your mind, you put it down, you give it to the world, and you kind of let them tell you, what they think of it and mold it, because that way, there's a saying, that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. You
Yes.
know what I mean? And it's like one of those things. Like you can have the idea by yourself, but then you go and you give it to the world, and together, this idea, which maybe you could make, from here to here, they're going to make it into something bigger. So that's awesome. So the last question I always ask before about contact information is, so I always ask all my guests, who would you want to see me interview on this show?
Who would I want to see you interview on this show? Ross Griswold.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's a friend of ours.
Yeah.
A local guy here in Jersey, a musician. I think but beyond that, he's a great person. He's multi-talented.
Yeah, I love him. I think Ross is a fantastic guy. I think that he would make a great guest because he is someone who is looking for a music career, but he does other things, and it's not just it's not just music is just not his life. I think that's actually a great suggestion, and I almost feel silly that I didn't have him on my list. So
you had to have him on your list.
I didn't, so there he is now. So, all right, well, tell everybody how they can find your book, Letter Kindling, and how if they want to get in touch with you, how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. Again, Letter Kindling. It's available on Amazon, onyxlibris.com, and BarnesandNoble.com. You can go hardcover, softcover, ebook. I do have a Twitter handle, which is my name, and I'm also on Facebook, which is my name. Any of those ways, you can get in touch with me. YouTube channel, my name as well. I post. It's for my classes, but within my YouTube channel, I do routinely have inspirational videos that really get me fired up. But any of those ways, please, you can get in touch.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. This has been a blast. I mean, I can't wait to sit down and talk baseball again with you.
Absolutely.
I'm sure in the next couple of months we'll see each other, and we definitely will. But thanks for your time. I appreciate it. And everybody, if you want to find Fox's book, I'll put a link to it in the show notes here. So check it out and give it a look. So thanks for your time.
Greg, thank you.
All right, I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, bye. So there you have it, Fox Beyer. And again, his book, Letter Kindling, is available on Amazon. And I will put a link to it in the show notes. So you can see he's fired up about a lot of things. I love Fox's approach, to teaching and how he wants to make it fun and conversational and have, teaching Spanish relate back to the kids. Because, honestly, if I had teachers like that in high school, and not saying that I didn't, I did have a couple, I think that I would have found it a little bit more engaging. I would have paid maybe a little bit more attention. Maybe I would have gotten less trouble than what I did, and who knows. So the other things, book of poetry, inspired by, different thoughts and collections that he has. And, the skinny fat dude story is actually quite a classic. And then just going on and on about baseball, you can tell how passionate he is about this sport of baseball and how blessed he feels to be a part of it. And, I would be the same way, still playing sports, nowadays with my friends, I experience the same type of, experiences and camaraderie, that he's talking about. And it's absolutely fantastic. So thanks a lot for watching. We really appreciate you watching and listening. Again, thank you, Fox, for being on our show. And we will catch you next time on More Than a Career Podcast. Thanks.